Woke culture, hookup culture, main character energy,
It is seeing yourself as the protagonist in your own life story.
new age spirituality. These are just a few trends that have shaped Gen Z over the past few years. So you think, with all these movements standing on the complete opposite end of the spectrum from organized religion, faith would be dead. And honestly, that's what I thought too. But that's actually not the case. In fact, something surprising is happening. While much of our generation is walking away from religion, a quiet group of young people are walking towards it. Not just to Christianity, but specifically to Catholicism. And as a young Catholic myself, I wanted to know why. We live in an era where everything is online now. And whether we realize it or not, what we're exposed to, it sticks. Influences,
Like
politics,
everybody needs to be woke.
trending opinions, movies, reels. This is the world we scroll through constantly. Loud, fast, and so sure of itself. But in all that noise, it's easy to miss the voice of God. So I grew up Catholic. Every week my family and I would go to mass, no matter what, and I mean, we still do. But I noticed that this seemed to be much more of a common pattern with many families when I was younger, because the church felt much more full. I would look around and I would see so many kids just like me. We'd all look like we'd been forced to be there, and we'd be half awake and fidgeting. But as I got older, I started noticing something. Fewer and fewer kids were showing up. And what used to be loud and lively started to feel quiet. So I started wondering, was this just my experience or was something bigger going on? It's interesting. If you look back, Catholicism and religion in general used to be central to life in many countries. For example, in the 1950s, more than 70% of Australian Catholics went to Mass every week. Today, that number is less than 10%.
What did you say?
Religion shaped schools, politics,
Every human being is a child of God, that he gets his rights from God, and that the purpose of state is to protect those God-given rights.
and even family life. Why? Well, for one, society was more traditional. Faith was passed down naturally through families and communities, and there wasn't much pressure to question it. But over time, especially in recent decades, that started to change. With the rise of individualism, secularism, and digital culture, faith started to feel optional, even restrictive, and slowly many began to walk away. Let's take a look at some more numbers. So presumably there has been a drop in Christianity overall, especially between 2016 and 2021. So as we can see here, that drop spans most age groups, but it's clearest here, which is among young adults. In Australia, about 22.6% identified as Catholic in 2016, but by 2021, that number dropped to 20%. And if we just look at this graph here, we can get a rough idea, a rough estimate of how many walked away during that time. So that's around 215,900 people that walked away from Catholicism during that time.
What did you say?
Meanwhile, those identifying as having no religion jumped to 38.9%, which is concerningly high. So yeah, the data basically confirms what I saw growing up. This is all Australian data, by the way, that I just showed because I live in Australia, but similar trends have happened in other countries, though not all are seeing a rise just yet. Some are unfortunately still declining. However, here in Australia, while numbers are still going down overall, we have been seeing an increase in young adults showing interest in the faith. And in countries like the US and UK, where there were also years of decline, there's now a more noticeable rise in young people returning to Catholicism. So while the big picture shows decline, there are growing signs of renewed curiosity among Gen Z. And we'll explore that more in a bit. But first, the question is, why did Catholicism decline so sharply over many years, and why against all odds are some young people coming back now? I decided to ask someone who's been thinking about this too, a fellow brother in Christ who's also just my actual brother. Okay, so before we dive in, can you quickly introduce yourself?
My name is Jeremy and I'm 20 years old and I've been Catholic my whole life, but I only started to take my faith seriously around 1.5 to 2 years ago.
Okay, so why do you think Catholicism has been declining up until recently?
I think it's due to two reasons. There's probably more factors, but the first reason is this idea of cultural Catholicism. And then the second one, I think it's just the rise of different secular cultures, stuff like woke culture.
So he mentioned two things, cultural Catholicism and the rise of secular culture, and I wanted to look into that more. So cultural Catholicism basically means when someone identifies as Catholic because of their family or upbringing, but they don't really practice the faith. So they might not go to mass or pray or have any real personal relationship with God. And this is super common in countries where Catholicism makes up the biggest share of the population. For example, in Italy, a study found that about 71% identified as Catholic, but only around 15% attended Mass weekly. And in Spain, a 2023 survey found 52% identified as Catholic, but only around 17% actively practice. So yeah, it makes sense that this would play a huge role in the decline. But if we also look at the bigger picture, there's actually more going on. A 2025 survey actually found that the top reason people leave the church is because their beliefs or values no longer match. About 18% said that that was their main reason. Even among cultural Catholics, 14% said the same. So it's not just tradition fading. A lot of people are walking away because they feel disconnected or like the church just doesn't fit into their lives anymore. And when you look at some of the reasons people give for leaving, a lot of it actually ties into the rise of secular culture too. Things like the church feeling outdated, conflicts with modern social values, and all that. What do you think Gen Z starts to struggle with when we walk away from faith, even if we don't realize it right away?
I don't think it's just Gen Z, but people in general. When they walk away from the faith, I think they start living life with not much direction, and because they lose this sense of ultimate purpose in their life. And that's why I think, especially for younger people, they start experiencing a lot of mental conditions like depression because of this loss of purpose, and they feel like they don't really have a path to follow or an ultimate goal to try and achieve in their life.
Okay, so he mentioned a loss of purpose and direction, which then often spirals into mental health issues. And the stats actually show just how heavy this is for Gen Z. In 2022, about 34% of 18 to 24-year-olds said they had experienced anxiety or depression, which is nearly double the rate of older generations. Another study found that young adults who feel like they lack a sense of meaning or purpose are more than twice as likely to experience anxiety or depression than young adults who did feel purpose and meaning, 54% versus 25%. Now, obviously, this isn't just about young people leaving the faith. It's a broader reality across Gen Z, but I do think the two are connected. With social media, isolation, and a culture saying create your own truth, so many of us end up feeling even more lost and disconnected. And a lot of the time, we don't realize how much that connects to our spiritual lives. We walk away from God thinking that it'll make us free, but instead we just end up empty. Because no matter how much we reject God with our minds, our souls will always long for Him, and the Bible actually tells us why. Genesis chapter 1 verse 27 says we're made in God's image, and Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11 says God has set eternity in the human heart, meaning deep down, every one of us is wired to know Him. We're all built to long for something beyond this life. So when we try to fill that God-shaped space in our hearts with pleasure, fame, money, relationships, all of which are temporary, it never truly satisfies, because only Christ can fill that void. And maybe some are starting to see that truth.
Well, more Americans are turning to Catholicism.
What makes Catholicism cool is trending in America.
I found a great sense of peace that I can't find anywhere else.
Most biggest growth area was from 18 to 24-year-olds.
I think people should know about the church in Africa is that the church is getting stronger.
The Catholic Church in South Korea has shown exponential growth in the last 50 years.
So then, why do you think Gen Z are starting to come back now?
I think Gen Z, younger people, are coming back to Christianity now. And I think a really significant factor playing into that is that we're living in the social media age, the digital age, where people would watch videos or look at stuff online and just I think people tend to notice how different people and different groups who have different beliefs act differently. And I think when people see Christians or Christian influences online and hear the things they say or observe and see the way they act and live their life, I think a lot of younger people are seeing goodness in that, and they're seeing beauty and truth in that.
So he brought up something I've noticed too, the impact of social media. Ironically, even though social media has definitely played a big role in pushing people away from Christianity, it's also been an eye-opener for some people.
Sometimes they're so overstimulated by all of the technology and entertainment that they have around them that they're understimulated.
We've seen just how much chaos and confusion exists in the world, and for some people, it's actually made them seek out stability, meaning, and truth. A recent Harvard study shows a jump from 15% to 21% in Gen Z Catholics between 2022 and 2023 in the US. And among churchgoers aged 18 to 34 in the UK, Catholics now comprise 41%, up from 22% in 2018. A big reason for that rise is social media itself. We're seeing more Catholic and Christian creators openly sharing their faith online, and a lot of young people are drawn to that. Even I've personally noticed more and more young people in this generation openly sharing the gospel and their faith online, and honestly, it's beautiful to see. Okay, last question. What drew you personally deeper into your faith?
My faith? I think a really significant factor that kind of jump-started my faith was realizing that our life here on earth is quite short. It's so much shorter than the eternity we could have with God in heaven. I'd say a really big reason why I'm trying to go all in for God in this life is because I don't want to risk everything in the next. I don't want to risk not being able to spend eternity with God in heaven just for a few pleasures here on earth in this very short span of time.
Secular humanism doesn't answer the very real human need for meaning and purpose. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die is a great way to live for a while, but eventually, when you start to reach the age of 50 or above, you start to think, is this all there is? I've got my house, I've got my car, but there's got to be more to life than simply this.
I think many people are starting to realize that living purely for success, pleasure, or money can feel fulfilling for a while, but in the end, it doesn't lead anywhere lasting. There's just no lasting purpose in it. And like Jeremy said, it's about seeking the kingdom of God, not just living for the now. And maybe that's why so many young people are starting to come back to their faith, or even exploring it for the first time, because they're realizing that there is something greater, something eternal, that's truly worth living for. Now, there's just one last question to answer. Why Catholicism? At first, it doesn't seem like the obvious choice, right? The Catholic Church can feel really traditional, quiet, and reverent compared to the high-energy worship you often see in a lot of modern churches that attract young people. But maybe that's the point, because I don't think Gen Z is just looking to be entertained. In fact, I think the tradition is part of what draws us in. The Catholic Church offers something lasting. About 2,000 years of unbroken history, apostolic teaching, and the sacraments Jesus gave us, especially the Eucharist, where we believe He is truly present. And maybe that's why so many of us are coming back, because it's real, unchanging, and eternal. And I really believe this is just the beginning of what God is doing in our generation. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!